To install the editor, open your email, download the file that is named GameEd.ex underscore. Once it is open, make sure to change the name of the file as it's supposed to be an exe. And click yes, and from there on, just follow the simple installation procedure. A link will be created on your desktop or wherever you've selected the file, and from there you can double click it and launch the program. The editor is a work in progress. As such, there are some features that are not working as intended and or some other little problems and that you will encounter. However, it should work pretty much okay. One of the problems I want to highlight right now is that double clicking on the bar to minimize and maximize will not work so well, so you need to adjust the size of the window to your screen as is. First thing first, let's create a project. Go into File, Create Project. Then you need to fill out some project properties. We'll start with naming it Test Table. After that, you select the folder into which you want to create a project, and note that this folder is very important because it will contain also all of the images in the project. You cannot put the images into different folders or even into a subfolder. It needs to be in the same location as the project file. Here I'll just pick the bin debug, which is where my program is installed. Next, you need to fill out the large and small size tables. For the tables, this represents the two different tables that we use for large and small screen devices. On the large screen devices, you always need to make the width 600, and you pick the height that is appropriate to conserve the aspect ratio of your project. For the small screen sizes, we have selected 440, and once again you pick whatever is going to fit the proper aspect ratio. Note here that I didn't calculate exactly what it should be, and the ratios are not quite the same, but nonetheless it gives you an idea. Once you click OK, you're going to be presented with two yellow squares and a list of elements here. We're going to come back to the list of elements, but first, here on the left is the large screen or the large table, and on the right is the small table. And you'll see here you have some scrolling, and on the right side you don't, because the table is just smaller. Now that we have created a project, we can now add some elements to it. To add an element, click the plus button over here. This will insert an item in the list over on this side. This item, you can give it a name. For example, here I will name it a flipper. And that way you can create multiple elements. And this one would be a table, for example. This one could be a bumper, and so on and so on and so on. If you want to delete an element, you simply select the element to be deleted, either by clicking on it or by moving the cursor with the arrows, and you press the minus button and it's going to go away. And also, one other thing you can want to do is to copy or if you want, clone an element. You select the element you want to clone, for example table here, and you click the arrow button, and that will add a copy of the previous element that you had selected with exactly the same attributes. It's very useful if you want to have more than one element that are very similar. So let's work with the elements. Well, first, to have anything to display, you first need to select the bitmap you want to have to display. The bitmap list here shown includes all of the bitmap that are in the project folder, and not in the subdirectory of this folder, just in the main project folder. So you dump all of your bitmap there, and it's going to do the trick. Here you can have a list of all the bitmaps. I will select the flipper. As you can see, By selecting it, I have now on the large table, I have a larger version of the bitmap, and on the smaller table, I have a smaller version of the bitmap. However, these are not scaled automatically by the program. You have to provide two different versions of the flippers, for example. In this case here, you can see I have flipper.png and also flippersmall.png. This file size is actually 470 by 564, and this one is 345 and by 414. The way they are created is by changing the size of the image in Photoshop and exporting them and at different sizes. That way you preserve the crispiness of the image without having scaling artifacts. Once we have selected the bitmap, we can choose which type of element we want this to be. A single bitmap element, as this in this case, will show that the old bitmap, and it's going to be displayed without any clipping. The bitmap section offers a little bit more parameters, and you can define a section of the bitmap only that you want to be shown. In this case, we'll pick a section of 100 by 100 with an offset of 50 by 70. As you can see, it takes a part of the original bitmap and just clips at the coordinate 0, 0 that we have selected here the values of the pixel from 50 to coordinate 50 and 70 with a width of 100 by 100. We can also move this element in any direction we want this way. Additionally, to move the element, we can click into the table area and use the arrows down, right, up, left to control the positioning. As you can see, the X and Y are also updated. By using the arrows in conjunction with the control key, you can move by increment of 10 to make it easier to move across the table. Let's put the flipper back into the single bitmap. As you can see, it represents a list of sprites that you want to animate, and you don't want to show more than one sprite at a time. How you deal with this is that you select the sheet element type, and that way you get some more parameters to fill out. The first of it is being steps, of which here there is 27 different sprites in this list. And you also need to select the size of each sprite, which in this case is 94 by 94. As you can see, we now have a single sprite selected. We can move the sprite anywhere we want, and it always conserves the element that it is showing. In this case, the first one. We can change which element shows by selecting the shown element, and you can see it steps one by one through all the possible elements. Now let's go ahead and add some other elements to this thing. We'll add a table, which should be here, the table. As you see, I didn't pick up the proper size for the bitmap, the project when I started, and so the bitmap is a bit longer than the project should be a bit longer to fit the bitmap. And let's add a bumper, which is a single one, and we'll select light bumper here. Okay, let's move that bumper a little bit. We'll put it somewhere in the middle. Normally we'll try to fit it very well here over this, but it's not necessarily the case here, and we just want to highlight some other functionality. First is the little checkbox here, which represents the visibility of the element. If you press it, it will simply disappear, and you can do the same thing by pressing Ctrl B, and to make it reappear, just press it again. Also, you can see that all the elements excuse me, are shown in the order they are represented. There is first the flipper is drawn, then we draw the table over it, which basically hides the flipper. So what to do if you add elements that shouldn't be in the proper stack order? You just select the element and you pick one of the two up and down arrows here, and if you click down, you can see we've got the flipper, and it's proper. If you want to put the flipper over the bumper, you can go ahead, but it doesn't matter because basically they are not overlapping. Okay, another thing you can do also is to select an element to be shown flipped, basically mirrored. It only works on along the y-axis, so if you want to flip something on the other side, well, it doesn't quite work for now. But this is very useful for example, using a single sheet of flippers and simply selecting this one to create a different one which is mirror, which we'll do. So let's select the flipper. I'm going to copy it. We have a new flipper and we can mirror it, and now we can move it. This way, using a single sheet of flipper, we have elements, we can draw both sides of the flipper. Now here we have an interesting problem. As you can see, the bumper animation is appearing on top of the ramp, which doesn't make any sense. This is the way because we need to do bitmap optimization when it comes time to display them on the different devices. So to do that, we create, as you can see, at the table element. The bitmap for this one includes all of the elements that are normally drawn on the screen in their off position. For example, the lights are off and the bumper are not animated, the slingshot neither, and the light. Everything is off. But we still have the ramp. That way, when it comes time to draw the ball, what we do is that we copy first this full bitmap that we can see, the table, to the screen, then we draw the ball, and after that we draw whichever element is above the ball. In this case, the ramp, or my example works as well with the bumper. First, we draw the floor of the table, which would look like something like this, and then we draw the bumper, and after that we draw the ramp on top of the bumper to make sure that all the layering is preserved. So to do that, I will create a new element. Never mind this. So I have my new element here. I will select the ramp, which I call the table 0 ramp here. And as you can see, it is now shown above the bitmap. So when you create a table, you first need to create the floor, then you create a new layer, in this case the table 0 ramp.png, which includes the information for the layers, the elements that are to be drawn on top of other elements, and you can stack them that way to create the proper layering information.